Hello, welcome to another video. Today is a fabulous day. Today is the day that I am bringing you my top 10 reads of 2019. These are the best books I read last year, and let me tell you, it was a struggle to narrow this down to 10 because I read so many fantastic books in 2019. I had the most 5-star ratings that I have ever had. I ended up giving out 24 5 stars in 2019, which when you compare that to the 8 that I gave out in 2018, I had a substantially better reading year, so narrowing down those 25 to my top 10 was difficult. And not only have I narrowed it down to my top 10, but I have actually ranked them. So we're going from 10 to 1 in order to my best book of 2019. I've put a lot of thought into this list. I genuinely love all of these books that I'm about to speak to you about. I gave them all 5 stars. Ranking them was difficult. I'm happy with what I'm about to present to you. If you also loved these books, let me know. If you didn't love these books, you know, that's cool too. They're not for everybody, not everything is for everyone. Let's quit the rambling and get on with this, because I could well be talking about these for a fair amount of time. So coming in at number 10, we have The Prairie of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I adored this, which is weird for me because a massive book like this is not normally something that would make my list, mainly because I would normally put off reading it because it's enormous. Big books intimidate me a lot. This received a whole heck of a lot of hype. I think that's probably mainly down to who it was marketed towards. Everyone was very excited about this, myself included. It's an adult fantasy about a queendom that is divided by the people who worship the dragons and the people who do not worship the dragons. So there are people that believe that their queen is what is keeping the dragons at bay and the queen's line is keeping the dragons at bay. And then on the other side of the world there are the people that ride the dragons, worship the dragons. The dragons are their gods. There is a draconic plague going on in the Midlands, and this follows the Queen's battle-ish with the Nameless One, who is this big deadly dragon that has been banished for thousands of years thanks to this Queen's line. And as the prophecy goes, the end of the Queen's line will see the Nameless One rise again. So Queen Sabran is the queen here, and although that is the overarching plot, we tend to follow Ede more so, who is our main character here, who kind of has a bit to do with everything, and she grows quite close to Queen Sabran and understands the troubles that she's going through with having all of these pressures on her family line. But Ede is definitely more central than Sabran realises. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. It's been a while since I read the blurb, so I don't know what's given away in that. But the blurb says, "A world divided, a queendom without an heir, an ancient enemy awakens." I love this a lot. It follows a lot of different perspectives, so not only do we have Queen Sabran and Ede, and then on the other side the Dragon Riders, where we follow Tanny. There's also, I've forgotten his name off the top of my head, but there's also like a scientist guy, kind of like a mad scientist over there as well, and we follow one of the Queen's close friends and so on, and all of their storylines kind of go off around the world, so you get to explore an awful lot of it, and all of the politics from all of the corners of this world and how they all kind of delve back together to the overarching plot. I adored this. I know a lot of people said that the pacing was off for this and that it was way too big, or potentially needed to be split into different books and not be quite so big, but I just loved everything about this, and the fact that I read it in 4 days also would suggest that the pacing was absolutely fine for me. There's number 10. Wow, I've been rambling for 5 minutes already, and that's only the 10th book, or the first of 10. We could be here for a while. Coming in at number 9 is The Girl Who Speaks There by Sophie Anderson. This is a middle grade, and a middle grade has made my list. Last year I kind of read a lot of middle grades, or even early this year read a lot of middle grades, and even my favourite ones were only getting like 4 stars. And I finally started rating middle grades 5 stars towards the back half of 2019, and I absolutely adored this. So Sophie Anderson also wrote The House with Chicken Legs, which I loved way back when that came out, and I was super excited for this. She writes books rooted in Russian fairy tale, like the Slavic folklore is very present throughout the whole thing, and I love that. That sort of folklore is something that I really enjoy reading. I've mentioned it many times that like polar fantasy and the Slavic folklore is something that I love, which is why I think I love this so much. But also it was just so fun and heartwarming, and all of the characters were just beautiful, and the like moral of it was beautiful. Ugh, I loved this. So this follows a little girl called Yanka who was abandoned outside a bear cave when she was a baby, and she was found by this woman who raised her as her own. But in her village people call her Yanka the bear, not because she was found outside of a bear cave, but because she's so big and so strong and she's taller than all the other kids. So she's kind of being bullied just for being the way she is, and you feel really sorry for her. But Yanka's always felt this pull towards the forest to find out where she really came from, why she was abandoned outside this bear cave, and what the truth is to her life. And this follows her story, her discovery, and her finding her herd. I love this so much. So compelling, so emotional and heartwarming, and adored it. Adored it a lot. Also, there's a lot of like fairy tales throughout it as well, and I really love the way that the fairy tales are being told within the story and they are kind of mirrored. So what's happening in the fairy tale is mirrored in what's happening within the story as well. I just think it was really beautifully done and I loved it. Coming in at number 8 is The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. This is the second book in the Winter Night trilogy, the first one being The Bear and the Nightingale, The Girl in the Tower, and I have not yet read The Witch of Winter. I need to, desperately. These books are like some of the most beautifully written books I've ever had the pleasure of consuming. They are very slow. So really not for everyone, and I get why people don't like these. They are very slow, and there's a lot of building and like setting up for things to come. But the atmosphere of these books, like so dark and magical and just, completely absorbed in this world I am. Whenever I read it, I absolutely adore it. So this trilogy follows Vasya, whose mother died when she was young, and her stepmother was a bit of a crazy lady, and their like housekeeper used to tell them stories of the spirits and the gods and the like magic that would surround their world. However, Vasya did not just love these stories, but she could also see the spirits in the household. She could communicate with them, she was friends with them, which got her branded as being a witch. This then follows Vasya as she grows up and challenges everything the world ever thought of her and everything that she could achieve and everything that she stood for and everything that the magic and the religion stood for in this world. I love it so much. Vasya's such a strong character, like the things that she puts herself through and everything that she does stand for, and I am lost for words on this one. Somehow I have failed to mention, again, Russian inspiration. This is set in Russia. I think a lot of this takes place in Moscow. For a young woman in medieval Russia, the choices are stark: marriage or a life in a convent. Vasya will choose a third way: magic. See what I mean? Like, she just challenges everything that is expected of her by being her. Definitely not a series for everyone because it's very slow going, but the atmosphere and the magic and all of that totally pays off for me, and I cannot wait to finish this series this year. Coming in at number 7 is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. I had this list all planned out, and then I read this and had to rejig it because I knew this had to go in there. It's another middle grade. Another middle grade I've given 5 stars. I adored this so much. So this follows Morrigan, who is a cursed child. Everything in her life goes wrong, everything around her goes wrong. She is bad luck, she is a misery to be around, and her curse means that she is destined to die on her 11th birthday. However, on the eve of her 11th birthday, a really bonkers man turns up called Jupiter North and whisks her away to the land of Nevermore, where she is set to take some trials to determine her fate. This is so magical and fun, and Morrigan is so, like, my sort of character. She's sassy, she's brave, she's courageous, she's also so real and, like, has vulnerable moments. I love her so much. She's so my cup of tea. And also the trials that she goes on and like the life that just happens around her is so magical. I'm gutted it took me so long to get to this because I absolutely adored it and I cannot wait to get to the sequel next year. However, I do feel like I've spoken about this one a lot recently because it was my last read of the year, so I've just blabbed about it a lot in my December wrap-up, so I'll put it down for now. Coming in at number 6 is Northchild by Edith Patu. I adored this. Polar fantasy, my jam. Magic, just beautiful settings, an atmosphere that completely sucked me in. The very, like, fairy tale-esque way that this is told, but also like the differing perspectives almost making it seem like a recollection of these things going on. It's almost like a puzzle, and it was just so much fun to read. I had the best time with this. I loved it. So this book follows Rose. Rose's mother is very superstitious about the birth direction, and that is the direction in which she is facing when she gives birth. She is convinced that a child born facing north is bad news, and the circumstances of Rose's birth are a little bit foggy. She may be a North child. And then a talking polar bear turns up on their door one day and wants to take her away. So she goes on this journey with this polar bear to this enchanted place, and all things magic and mystical happen, and of course there is an evil that must be defeated. But I love this so much. Gavin sent me an arc of it. I actually read the arc, which is up here somewhere. Can you see it? Up there. However, this is just a republication of a book that I believe was called East, so it has been out for a fair while. I think it was just rebranded, republished, given this beautiful cover, and called Northchild instead. But yeah, absolutely adored this. Completely recommend. Perfect for Polathon if you're after something for that. Rose, similarly to Morrigan, Rose is just so my cup of tea as a character. She's just so like bold and brave and adventurous, but again also has that vulnerability, and she's just loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Coming in at number 5 is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a book told in an interview format. It is about a young girl who fell down a hole on her bike when she was little and landed in the palm of a giant metal hand, and then the place she fell into started glowing blue and all sorts of crazy stuff was going on. We then skip forward a fair few years and we are following the research team researching what this hand is, where the rest of its body is, what it is, where it came from, what it can do, etc. But as I say, it's all told in interview format, and the interviewer is a very mysterious character. You don't really know who he is, what his motivation is, like what side he's from, what he wants, and you're constantly kind of questioning it. This was so compelling, and I'm amazed I haven't got to the sequels in this series yet. It's another series that I need to get to this year, because I read this in less than 24 hours because I could not stop. I needed answers. I had to know what was going on. But yeah, very, like, confusing, compelling, loved it so much. It's one of those sort of, like, mind-boggling books that I just adore. Coming in at number 4 is Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. Would it be me if I didn't have Schwab on this list? This is the sequel to This Savage Song, which I read a couple of years ago, and for some reason I just never got round to reading Our Dark Duet. I don't know what I was playing at, but this year I did it. I read it and I loved it. I loved it more than the first one. I had so many strong emotions about this book. Like, it was genuinely heartbreaking. Like, heartbreaking. Whew. So the Monsters of Verity duology, as it is called, follows a couple of kids in a world that is divided by monsters. So there is a seam down the middle. One side is run by the Harkers, who claim people can buy protection from the monsters which inhabit the seam, and the other half is run by the Flynns, who are the good guys that aren't stealing people's money and being corrupted by the monsters. So it follows Kate Harker and August Flynn and their opposing ways of life, and the monsters that inhabit this world. And again, it's been so long since I read the first one, I don't know what's on the blurb and what's not, so I don't want to say too much. It's about their paths and how their paths cross and the shit going down in this world. It's really good. I love it. And this book just absolutely stepped it up. Like, I loved the first one a lot, but this stepped it up. It was phenomenal. I was so invested. I mean, I already loved the characters, but like, this made me love them so much more. I became so much more emotionally attached to them. I don't think a book has ever broken my heart quite so much as this one did. Absolutely adored this. But it's Schwab, so like, what can you expect? Coming in at number 3, we're into my top 3, oh my god. Blood Witch by Susan Dennard, and really this stands for the whole trilogy. I say trilogy, the first 3 in this series, because I did read all 3 of them this year, and I found a new favourite series in this. So the Witchland series starts with Truth Witch, Wind Witch, Sight Witch, I forgot that novella, and then Blood Witch, so there's actually 4. Whoops. Follows 2 girls, Safi and Iseult. Safi is a truth witch, and a truth witch in an empire on the brink of war is a dangerous thing to be, because if the wrong person were to get their hands on you, you're a very powerful weapon. She's able to tell the difference between truth and lie, just as part of her magic. And her best friend, Iseult, is a thread witch, so she can see the threads that flow through the world, the threads that connect people. The threads are different colours to show different like emotions and connections, etc. Because Safi is kind of hiding her witchery, they end up on the run just a little bit and get themselves into all sorts of shit along the way, including being chased by a blood witch who wants to kill them. I love it so much. Safi and Iseult, amazing characters. Adrian as well, fantastic. Like, even Leopold, amazing. I'm just listing characters here. If you haven't read them, you won't know who I'm talking about. But these characters are fantastic. And again, the political fantasy of this just has me completely hooked. You get to see all of the different aspects of this world. You get to visit each of the like continents and have their stance on the fact that they're all on the brink of war and what's coming, etc, etc. There's so many sides and you're kind of rooting for everybody, or at least I am kind of rooting for everybody, because you're exposed to so much of each of these characters, and I just love them all and want the world to be a happy place. I believe the 4th one is coming out this year, fingers crossed, and I think it's going to be Iseult's book, so really looking forward to that because I think she is my favourite character. I love her quite a lot. Political fantasy, empire on the brink of war, all of these characters are witches, so you've got the Truth Witch, the Thread Witch, the Blood Witch, there's Wind Witches, Tide Witches, Air Witches, all sorts of witchery going on, and it's just fantastic. So yeah, if you go back to any of my videos early in the year, I think it was like February time, all I did was rave about this series, and I still love it, and I'm desperate for the 4th one, and I think I might do a reread of the first 3 before we get to the 4th one, because there's a lot going on and I'm gonna need a refresh. Coming in at number 2 is Crownbreaker by Sebastian de Castell. I read this one in December as well, so I gushed about it in my December wrap-up, so I won't gush too much, but this is the last book in the Spellslinger series, the 6th and final book, so I can't really tell you too much about it because it will spoil everything else. But the Spellslinger series is one of my all-time favourite series. It follows Kellen in book 1. He's just turning 16, he's about to take his mage's trials. However, a slight problem is that all of his magic is gone. In strolls Farius Parfait with a few tricks up her sleeve, who might be able to lend him a hand, and on goes their adventure Oh my god. Again, political fantasy. You get to go to all aspects of this world. You get to visit all the different kingdoms and the empires and see their way of life and their rulings, and there's so much going on. So much going on. And the twists and the turns in this, the betrayals, the relationships, the love, the hurt, the hate, there's just so much. And this was such a great conclusion to this series. It was everything I could have wanted it to be. Absolutely adored it. If you have not read this Spellslinger series, I've been going on about it for years now, and it's over. All 6 are there. You can, like, get through them. And once you've started, you won't want to stop. Anyone sleeping on this? Read the series. Fantastic. If you like political fantasy, if you like magic and con games and trickery, then it's all of those things rolled into one, and I absolutely adore it. And coming in at number 1, it appears this year has been the year of Sebastien de Castell. It is The Knight's Shadow. This is the 2nd book in the Greatcoats series. This book is 600 pages and I read it in a day. I'm very proud of that accomplishment. I love this. Sebastien de Castell is one of my favourite authors, and his writing style is so very my jam. It's sarcastic, it's witty, he like breaks convention and just talks to the reader. It's great. He's funny, but it's also heartbreaking, it's also traumatic, it's also action-packed, and again, very deeply political. It's another political fantasy. The Greatcoats follows a trio of fallen Greatcoats. It follows Falcio as our main character, who is a fallen Greatcoat. The Greatcoats were the king's advisors when the king was alive, but not just his advisors, they were his magistrates. They upheld the king's law. They weren't just knights or servants, they stood for the law, whether that be to the people in the kingdom or to the king himself. They were more than a knight. They were the law. And when the king died, or was murdered, the Greatcoats fell. And yeah, this is Falcio and his band of merry men and their journey to fulfill their king's last wish, and everything else that comes along with that. It is brutal. It is so action-packed. Like, there are so many twists and turns, and again, the betrayals, the relationships, the hurt, the pain, the love, the laughter, like everything. This book was everything, hence why it's number 1 on a list of incredible books. I read so many fantastic books, and this one really is the best of them, hence why it's number 1. This book gave me physical reactions. It's the sort of book that I was punching. Like, I had the best time with this, and I think it's a series that is really, really underhyped. Nowhere near enough people have read the Greatcoats series, in my opinion, like from what I've seen, that is. But it's absolutely phenomenal. It's so good. But again, it's one I have raved about many times, and I'm really hoping to finish this series this year as well, which shouldn't be a problem because I'm just super excited about all of them, especially with this being my number 1 book of 2019. Like, how eager I am to get onto more of his works is a lot. It's a lot. Also, he took the top 2. Like, this man writes books that I love, very clearly. And there we have it. They are my top 10 books of 2019. I recommend all of them completely. They're all 5-star reads. I had many more 5-star reads as well this year, so I've really picked the best of the bunch for this list, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing me ramble about them. I'm sorry if this is really long because I've been filming for a fair while. I'm gonna have to cut out a lot of me just blabbing on, but I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. If you have also loved any of these books, then please chat to me about them because I could go on and on and on. So that conversation is always open. And let me know what your best book of 2019 was as well down below. I would genuinely love to know. I want to know, you know, what I should be on the lookout for if it's one that I haven't already read or haven't heard of. So yeah, please do let me know. But I will stop nattering on now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!